So it's a Sunday. For those who might be watching the replay, I'm not seeing anybody in the room just yet. And it occurred to me that I haven't tried doing a YouTube vertical live. So why not? What better way to spend a few minutes on a Sunday? I'm just going to wait for them to fill up a little bit. But I thought, what could I talk about for maybe like 10 minutes that really help you in your piano journey, wherever you are, whether you're beginner, intermediate, advanced, it would help you right now. And what better place to start than the basics? That's your seating position, your posture, and your hand position. So once we get some people, oh, I see somebody just joined us, thank you. And again, for those just joining us, welcome. This is historic. It's my first YouTube vertical live. I don't even know where the chat thing is here. Or I guess it'll show up on the bottom. If you're new here, feel free to drop a chat in. So let's talk about piano posture. So times when we have trouble, when we have tension, when playing the piano feels awkward, it's a lot of it can be just solved by looking at the basics. In this case, how you're sitting, how you're holding your hands, things like that. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So when you're sitting at the piano, here I'm going to change my orientation a little bit. Here, let's lower this a little. This is my studio. Welcome. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Angle this down. Okay, so let's talk about piano seating. So, and if you have any questions as we go, feel free to drop it in the chat. So there are really two things you want to think when you're sitting at the piano. The first, when you're sitting at the piano, you want to make sure that your seat is high enough. I think the number one problem that people have when they sit at the piano is they're sitting too low. This bench is hard to adjust, but if you can imagine, just if you have to reach up to reach the key, sitting too low, or if you're doing this with your shoulders when you're kind of lifting like this, you're sitting too low. So if you're lucky enough to have an adjustable seat, you can just adjust that, make it higher. Vast majority of people do not have adjustable seats. So what you could do is you could put some pillows underneath, or you can stack some books, whatever. But you want to be sitting high enough that you can keep your shoulders relaxed. You do this, and then your hands are about at the white keys or a little bit above without having to do this or without needing to reach. So that's thing number one. And then second is you want to make sure you have enough distance from the keyboard. So going back to seat height, I rarely see somebody too high. If you have a seating problem, you're probably sitting too low. Just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. So next is your distance from the keyboard, and you want to be sitting enough that you can put your arms out like this, make two fists, and your knuckles reach the fall board. That's this part right here. Or if you have a keyboard, they reach the back of the keys. From my experience, having taught hundreds and hundreds of students over the years, most students sit too close. Once they do this, it feels like they're so far away, but now you have all this room to move your arms and stuff. By contrast, if I'm close, you can see I'm very restricted now. Now, occasionally I've seen some concert pianists sit incredibly close and somehow they make it work, but the typical advice, again, is to sit far enough that you can put your arms out, knuckles, and there you are. So and distance. That's the first thing you want to think about. So now let's talk about posture a little bit, because you know, we could say you just have to sit up straight. And what happens is people stiffen up, you get, you know, sort of military style. You want to sit up straight, but you want to have relaxed shoulders. A lot of people lift their shoulders when they play, and a lot of people even just have raised shoulders to begin with without realizing it. So one way that you can sort of figure out where your natural relaxed shoulders lie is to do sort of this, sort of force your shoulders down and then relax. Another slightly weirder thing, might feel kind of strange, but to sort of like relax your arms and then rock back and forth and kind of let your arms swing, and then you have a natural shoulder position, and then sort of keep that as you bring it over to the piano. Keep your shoulders relaxed. Just bring your arms up, keeping the shoulders relaxed. If you normally have tense shoulders, this should feel like a really, really nice adjustment. Okay, so we covered seating height, sitting high enough that your arms reach those white keys, sitting enough from the keyboard that when you do this, your fists reach the fall board. I'll go over all this at the end for those who are just joining us. Thank you for joining for our first ever YouTube Vertical Live. And now we're going to talk about how to fix your hand position, because a lot of people have, really struggle. I'm going to go through some common issues and how to fix that. I'm going to move my phone this way. And again, do feel free to comment with any questions. I'll do a quick Q&A at the end here for our little spontaneous YouTube Live. I'm going to do a close-up here. So a couple things with hand position. Now you'll find that if you fix your seating height, so again, sit high enough, this is how far away you want to be, that's actually going to solve a lot of stuff. One thing I didn't mention, because I think most people watching are probably adults, but if you're on the older side, or if you're maybe a parent watching this and you have kids, you also want to make sure that your feet are stable on the floor. If you're in that category, you have kids in that category, feet just don't reach the floor. You don't want them dangling. Like imagine sitting on a bar stool or something and trying to play the piano. It's really awkward, and I think even teachers kind of take that for granted with kids. So you might want to put some books there so that your feet have something stable to sit on. So now, hand position, and if you have specific questions about this, because this is a big topic, do feel free to throw that in the chat. I'd be happy to answer any questions. So the first thing is thinking about the wrist. A lot of people play with the wrist too low. And there's one way that you can fix your wrist so that it's always sort of at the perfect position. You want to have your wrist above the white keys, but use what I like to call the thumb perch. Actually, I wish I could say I invented that, but that's somebody else's. But you're taking your thumb, holding an angle to the keys, some might say about a 5-degree angle, and the thumb acts like a perch that holds the wrist in a good place. If my thumb goes down, it's not acting like a perch, wrist goes down. So sort of ironically, to get our wrist in a good position, we're going to think about where the thumb is, how the thumb is angled at the keys, and that keeps our wrist in a good place. Next is how to play with stable fingers. The next most common issue with hand position or hand placement is how we play. If we're playing with flat fingers, if we're playing too far on the pads, if we're playing with tension, stuff like that. So I'll show you a few tips that hopefully you could apply today in practice. The first, and I'd say probably the most important, is to think about contact point your finger with the keys. And an easy way to think about that is to make circles from the tip of your thumb to the tips of your other fingers. So circle, 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 circle. And as you do this, number one, make sure you're just circle and not like a shadow puppet dog sort of a thing. So try to make actual circles and think about this contact point here. So where your finger is touching your thumb, because we're going to try to apply that to where we're playing. So if I have my thumb perch, so I have my thumb angled, so my wrist is high enough, and I think about applying that contact point to the keys, then that actually gives me a nice curve to my fingers. By contrast, a lot of people tend to play on the pads of the fingers, and if you notice, it's a little hard to see with the camera angle. I'll do it with my left hand so you can see a little better. If you play on the pads, then you end up with a flat position, a flat finger, wrist is down. Like there's no way you're gonna be able to, if you're, I think you see what I'm getting at. So contact point, super important. And if you find that maintaining this is difficult, what you can do, this isn't especially exciting, but you can do it playing with just your third finger. A lot of people say this is a good finger to start with fixing a lot of hand position problems because it forms a straight line with the forearm. So if keeping that nice curve of the finger is a challenge, you can just make an exercise of just taking the third finger and just playing one note at a time while keeping a nice flexible wrist. Because by using those larger muscles, we control the stability of this finger as opposed to trying to fix all of the fingers at once. Okay, so thank you to those who are just joining for our Vertical Live. I just went through some tips on seating position, on posture, and hand position. If you're just joining us, I'll recap these really quick, and then I'd love to take any questions if anybody has questions. So just a really quick review. I went through these in a little more detail earlier, but first, seating position. When you sit at the piano, sit high enough that your shoulders are relaxed. You can do this, and that your hands are at about the white keys, maybe a little bit above, but certainly not below, because you're going to end up doing this with your shoulders to some degree to get your hands up to the right place. Second, distance from the keyboard. You want to sit far enough away. You can put your arms up, make fists and your knuckles reach about right here, the fall board. For most people, it's going to feel like you're much further away than usual, but that's also essential. Keep yours relaxed. The way you can practice that is just hang your shoulders and sort of let your arms swing almost like drapes. And then for hand position, we were just talking about circles with your fingers. Feel that contact point from that finger to, or from the other finger to the thumb. Try to apply that as best you can. And then also think about the perch that's holding your thumb at an angle to the keys so that the thumb acts like a perch that holds your wrist in the most optimal position. Okay, that. We'll take any questions. If anybody has questions, our 3 people that are here. Whoops, I have this stand, and of course it just popped out of its thing. There we go. All right, lift this up, right. Okay, so I don't see any questions, so we'll give it like 2 more minutes, or 1 more minute. If anybody has any specific questions about seating, how to sit at the piano, how to play at the piano, especially if you're experiencing pain when play. A cool thing about the piano is the most natural instrument when you think about it. It's symmetrical, we're able to sit, we're able to make movements compared to other instruments. I mean, if you play violin, like there's no other context in life where you do this. Or if you play clarinet, there's no other context where you're gonna do this. So with piano, if you do everything right, it can actually be a really nice, relaxing, natural feeling instrument to play if you have these sort of basics. And so that was why I felt compelled on this sunny, if you look outside, at least here in Boston, just south of Boston, if you look past the mess on my desk, it's a lovely day outside as winter is coming in. It's good piano practicing weather. And with that, I see my phone is on low power. So thank you so much for those who joined. If you are new here, please do subscribe to our South Shore Piano School YouTube channel. We're all about taking the otherwise complicated act of learning the piano and making it into easily digestible and even fun steps for you to enjoy every step of your musical journey. All right, thanks again for joining. I'll look forward to seeing you in another video.